Welcome back. Shabbat Shalom to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. Shabbat Shalom to those that are seeking the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Shabbat Shalom to those that are seeking truth and righteousness for the glory of the Creator. Greetings and Shabbat Shalom to all of you. We have just completed 3 chapters of our study in the prophecy of Daniel. We completed 3 chapters, and now we're going to begin chapter 4 of the study of the prophecy of Daniel. Before we go to chapter 4, let's go to the book of Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 13 or chapter 12. Hebrews, let me see which one I want. I think it's chapter 12 I want. Hebrews chapter 12. Yes, Hebrews chapter 12. I'm going to begin in Hebrews chapter 12. I'm going to begin at verse 1. I'm going to go down from verse 1 down to verse 10. Actually, from verse 1 down to verse 11. Hebrews, Shabbat Shalom, Loma. Welcome back, Mark. Hebrews chapter 12, from verse 1 to verse 11. Notice what it says. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking to Yahushua, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of Yah. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds. Ye have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin. And ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise thou not the chastening of Yahweh, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. For whom Yahweh loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, Yah dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us and gave them reverence, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. When we come to the Most High, Shabbat Shalom, Antonio and Junior, when we come to the Most High and we surrender ourselves to him as his children, the first thing he does is chasten us. He has to. He has to humble us. He has to chasten us as we would chasten our children that have been rebellious. He chastens us also. And I have a personal testimony with regard to this. I've mentioned to you how he has had to chasten me many times. Now, the last major chastening I had lasted 7 years, and this is appropriate for what we are studying in Daniel chapter 4. How it started is I woke up one morning and I heard a voice as I was awakening. And it said, all this came upon the man, and he named me. He said, all this came upon the man, this man, me, right? And I had another dream. And in the dream, I was in a house with my wife and children. And there were different compartments of the house. And I pushed my wife and children into the next compartment because there was a woman and she sent somebody to kill me in the house. And the person came out and they were like a martial artist and they tried to kill me and I beat them. Then I went into the second compartment and I pushed my wife and children into the third one. And a woman pushed another person out from behind the wall to kill me. And I beat that person. Then I went to the third compartment and there was a door, and I pushed my kids and my wife toward the door. But this time, what came out was a big, giant, intimidating black man. He came out from behind the wall, and he was muscles on top of muscles, and he came out, and he came to kill me. And I was much smaller than him. But I had to fight him in the dream. I knew I had to fight him to live. So he came at me and we were going at it, and I would hit him and it wouldn't really stun him that much. But then when he hit me, I would go down hard. So he hit me and I was down, and then he came to choke me to death. And at that moment, I decided that he wasn't going to kill me, that I was going to live. And I put forth every ounce of effort. And the effort came not from just a want to survive, but it came from an anger. I was angry, and I got him up off me, and he backed up. And then I just attacked him, and I hit him with everything I had. And he stumbled back, and he fell, and I saw his feet go up in the air as he fell back. And then the dream, everything changed, and I was in an open field, and it was peaceful. And it was like I was in Jamaica, and a man was there. He was cutting a piece of sugar cane, and he had a straw hat on, and he had a machete in his hand. And I saw the machete in his hand, and I thought he might attack me, even though it was peaceful. And he looked at me and he smiled, and he handed me the handle of the machete. And when I took it, I realized the fight was over. And that represented a 7-year period upon which I went from making about $140,000 a year to $40,000 a year. I went from having 2 secretaries to losing my office. I went from having a house, my children, to losing it to foreclosure. I had lost the house to foreclosure prior to that, like maybe it was probably about 12 years before, 10 years before, something to that effect. But my children were little then. They didn't really realize what was going on. It didn't register. We would lose that house, and we went and rented another house, and we were okay. And we ended up, continuing on and surviving. But this time they were all teenagers when we lost this second house. This time they were very cognizant of everything that was going on. There was a lot of tension. There was a lot of worry. We were short money. People were coming knocking on the door. Sheriffs were coming to the house. It was a lot different. At this time, all of my children were angry at me. My wife was not happy with me. Matter of fact, we came very, very close to divorcing. We were separated, and we lost the house, and we were homeless. And friends of ours took us in, and we were staying in their living room. And then I got a job, and like I said, I had to get a job. I had a business before. Now I had to go get a job. And I had people half my age supervising me for a third of what I was making before. And I could hardly support my family. It was for me to be humbled. I had to be chastened. I did not realize how much the desire and the drive to get paid had affected me. See, sometimes we get caught up in things and we don't even realize how far we've gone. We don't realize it. I didn't realize how far I had gone. I didn't realize how far gone I was. I didn't realize how arrogant I had become. I didn't realize a lot of things. But that humility, that almost losing my whole family, losing our house a second time to foreclosure, getting my cars repossessed, losing my office, losing my secretaries, losing everything. Now I was humbled. And I had to be in order for him to save me, in order for Yah to save me. And so when it talks about chastening, I understand firsthand what it's talking about. And we're going to read today in Daniel chapter 4 about that. But before we do, I want to also understand that this chastening happens to us on an individual basis. The Most High has to humble some of us, especially us Hebrews, has to get us in a position where we're ready to listen, ready to receive of his instruction. Now, as we are getting to the time of the mark of the beast, And as we're getting to the time where we're not going to be able to buy or sell, and we're getting to the time where we have no support from anyone on this planet, and the only support we're going to be depending on is the Father alone, we're going to be just like our fathers were when they left Egypt. And I want you to again notice what our father, did to our former fathers, the ones, our forefathers. What did he do? How did he express to them what he wanted from them in this scenario? We're also going to experience what we're going to read right here, Deuteronomy chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Deuteronomy 8. I'm going to begin at verse 1. I'm going to begin at verse 1, and I'm going to go from verse 1 down to verse 6, Deuteronomy chapter 8, from 1 to 6. All the commandments which I command thee this day, ye shall observe to do, that ye may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which Yahweh sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which Yahweh thy Most High led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not. Neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man does not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Yahweh doth man live. Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years. Thou shalt also consider in thine heart that as a man chasteneth his son, so Yahweh thy Most High chasteneth thee. Therefore thou shalt keep the commandments of Yahweh thy Most High, to walk in his ways and to fear him. So our forefathers walked through the wilderness for 40 years, and the Most High used that time to humble our forefathers, to prepare them, because in order to gain the kingdom, we have to be prepared for the kingdom. We have to be spiritually prepared for the kingdom. We cannot just walk into the kingdom any type of way. He has to prepare us so that we can dwell in a kingdom of righteousness and peace, and we won't be the ones to try to start this whole thing all over again with rebellion. We won't be the ones to try to rebel against the Creator as our fathers did and as our Satan did. So he's going to humble us. He's going to chasten us till we get to the point where we're trusting him completely. All of us are going to go through this as we get into the time when we cannot buy or sell. But up to right now, he's even preparing us all before that, so that we can serve him, that we can give him his honor and his glory and his praise that is due to his holy name, Yahweh. Now, the most power you have, the most authority you have, the most influence you have, the heavier he's going to humble you. Okay, the most, see, here I am with 2 secretaries. I got my office. I'm making money. I'm telling people, go here, do this, do that. They're looking to me for their paychecks. And I was not humble. I didn't even realize how unhumble I was. It took the chastening of the Father for me to realize it. Okay, it took the chastening of the Father for me to almost lose my entire family, for me to realize that I needed to be humbled. And I'm telling you, I'm not the only one. Some of y'all out there know exactly what I'm talking about. There is no shortcut to get ready to serve the Father. There's no shortcut. We all have to go through this process of humility. And as a king, Nebuchadnezzar, as any king, Nebuchadnezzar had great responsibilities. A king has tremendous power, right? A king has tremendous power. They have great responsibilities, all right? Let's first on our way to Daniel. We're going to stop in let's see. I'm going to stop in This is David after he was delivered from Saul and from Absalom, his son, that had rebelled against him to try to take the kingdom. 2 Samuel chapter 23. 2 Samuel chapter 23. And the Bible records this as the last word of David. Notice what it says, beginning at verse 1. Now these be the last words of David, the son of Jesse. The son of Jesse said, and the man who was raised up on high, the anointed of Yah, of the Most High of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel said, the spirit of Yahweh spake by me, and his word was in my tongue. The Most High of Israel said, the rock of Israel spake to me, he that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of the Most High. And he shall be as the light of the morning when the sun rises, even a morning without clouds, as the tender grass springing out of the earth by the clear shining after rain. Although my house be not so with Yah, yet he hath made me an everlasting covenant, ordered in all things and sure. For this is all my salvation and all my desire, although he make it not to grow. He that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of Yahweh. David obviously had gotten humbled. He was humbled when he ran from Saul. He was humbled when he met and he had Uriah the Hittite murdered to take his wife. He was humbled when his son Absalom tried to kill him, take the throne from him. He was humbled by all these and more experiences. And he learned by the end of his life, as he was a man after the Most High's own heart, he was humble and he understood he that ruleth among men must be just, ruling in the fear of the Most High. Today, we have many rulers. They're presidents, they're prime ministers, they're premiers. And there's no justice on the earth. The earth is filled with unrighteousness and violence and greed. What does that tell you based on what we've already read? The Most High is going to humble the whole earth. He's going to do it. Now, let's go now to Daniel chapter 4 and see how Nebuchadnezzar got converted. Daniel chapter 4. And this is when we're reading chapter 4 of Daniel, you must understand that this is Nebuchadnezzar's testimony. He's giving a testimony. So when you're reading this, you must understand it from the man that he's talking like this has already happened to him. And he's giving the testimony of what had happened to him and why it happened to him and what was the result. So he's giving a testimony, and this chapter 4 is Nebuchadnezzar's testimony of how he was converted to the Holy Father, the Heavenly Father, Yah, how he was converted. Notice again, Daniel chapter 4, beginning at verse 1, Daniel 4, beginning at verse 1. I'm going to read from verse 1 down to verse 3. Nebuchadnezzar the king, unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the High, Most High, hath wrought toward me. How great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion from generation to generation. So now he's recounting. He's at this point, he's already converted. Whatever happened at the rest of this chapter it happened already. And he's telling you how great are his signs. He's telling you, he thought it good to show the wonders of the Most High. He's saying, peace be multiplied to all the people of the earth. He has been converted. And so now he's going to begin to show you from the point this process started for him. And beginning at verse 4. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my head and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore made I a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known unto me the interpretation of the dream. So this time, the first time, as you remember, in chapter 2 of Daniel, he had a dream that he forgot. He forgot the dream. And he needed them to tell him what he dreamt and then interpret it. This time, he remembers what he dreamt. And he asked them to interpret it. He remembers what he dreamt and he asked them to interpret it. Okay, verse 7. Then came the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. I want you to notice, it wasn't that they couldn't tell him. They didn't tell him. See, it didn't say they could not. It said they did not make known unto me the interpretation. Because, brethren, when you're dealing with a man of power and authority, a man that's used to thinking he's a god, what you don't want to do is be the bearer of bad news. Right? Everybody knows that. What you don't want to do is be the one that gives him news he don't want to hear. Now, good counselors would do that. A faithful counselor is going to tell him the truth regardless. But you see, you have to understand, with this man telling him the truth could cost you your life. So he said, they did not make known unto me the interpretation. They were afraid. They didn't want to say anything to him about what that dream meant. Okay. Now, Daniel chapter 4, verse 8. But at the last, Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him, I told the dream. So notice, I want you to notice, and he's recounting this. This is his testimony. He's recounting what happened. He said, I called in, and he called him Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar. Because when Daniel and his friends came into captivity, the Babylonians changed their name to Babylonian names. But now he's given a testimony. So he says, I called in, and he named him Daniel, his Hebrew name. He said his name was Belteshazzar, but he called him Daniel. And he said, I had named him after my gods, which is the one he used to serve. Remember, this is testimony. I had named him after my gods, but his name was Daniel. I called Daniel in, and I made known the dream to him. Verse 9. O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee, and no secret troubleth thee. Tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof. Thus were the visions of mine head in my bed. I saw, and behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. And the leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much. And in it was meat for all, the beasts of the field, and the shadow under it, had shadow under it. And the fowls of the heaven dwelt in the boughs thereof, and all flesh was fed of it. I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher, and an holy one, came down from heaven. He cried aloud and said, thus, hew down the tree and cut off his branches, shake off his leaves and scatter his fruit. Let the beast get away from under it and the fowls from his branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass. In the tender grass of the field, let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basis of men. That was his dream. Verse 18. This is the dream. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now thou, O Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation thereof, for as much as all the wise men in my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but thou art able, for the spirit of the holy God is in thee. Daniel, having already been through some stuff with this king understanding who Daniel is not afraid to give the king the answer. But Daniel is concerned, genuinely concerned for the king. Notice what happened. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonished for 1 hour, and his thoughts troubled him. The king spake and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble thee. See, he knew this was not good. Nebuchadnezzar knew this was not a good dream, like not good for him. Belteshazzar answered and said, my lord, the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof to thine enemies. See, the people that hate you, your enemies, they'll be glad about this interpretation. They'll be glad about it. Verse 20. The tree that thou sawest, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto the heaven, and the sight thereof to all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. It is thou, O king. Thou art grown and become strong, for thy greatness is grown and reaches unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. Whereas the king saw a watcher and a holy one coming down from heaven and saying, hew the tree down and destroy it, yet leave the stump of the roots thereof in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass and the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field till 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree from the Most High, which is come upon my lord the king, that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven. 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. And whereas they commanded to leave the stump of the tree roots, that the kingdom, thy kingdom, shall be sure unto thee. After that thou shalt have known that the heavens do rule. So he told him, you're going to be cut down. You're going to be humbled. For 7 years, you're going to think you're an animal. You're going to eat grass like if you're a cow for 7 years. You're going to lose your mind for 7 years till you understand that the Most High rules everything. See, at this point, Nebuchadnezzar should have already known. He had the first situation with Daniel in the dream. He had the image of gold in the fiery furnace. He should have known by now that Daniel's God is the true God. He should know already. But again, a lot of times we don't even realize how far pride has gone with us. We don't even realize how much it has affected us, and how much any authority we thought we had has affected how we act. We don't realize it, and how far we are from humility until the Most High has to show us. This is what happened to the man Nebuchadnezzar. And in fact, notice what it says here. Verse 27. Daniel's going to counsel him. Wherefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto thee, and break off thy sins by righteousness, and thine iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility. He says, it don't have to be so bad if you humble yourself, you help the poor, you humble yourself before the Most High. It don't have to be this way. Apparently it did, though. Daniel chapter 4, verse 28. This is the same voice I heard when I woke up that morning. All this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar, except my name was placed in it. Okay. All this came upon the man Gabar. All this came upon me because I needed to be humble. And brethren, he will do it to you too. It's better for us, believe me, to humble ourselves than to have the Father chasing us because he's trying to save us. Better that we should humble ourselves. Nebuchadnezzar would have been better if he listened to Daniel's counsel and humbled himself. But I want to tell you, hard-headedness, stubbornness, and pride are very powerful things. Very powerful things. They caused the king Saul to be lost. Okay? No joke. Notice again, verse 28, and reading forward. All this came upon the king, Nebuchadnezzar, at the end of 12 months. So it was a year later. The Most High gave him space, gave him a whole year to take Daniel's advice, gave him a whole year to humble himself, gave him a whole year. Okay? 12 months. Notice what happened. 12 months, at the end of 12 months, he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. The king spake and said, is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? Notice his attitude. He's walking through his palace. Remember in the beginning of the testimony, he said, I was flourishing in my palace. He walked through his palace. He said, and he looked over his kingdom and he said, is not this great Babylon? Today, as I'm speaking to you, this is the same attitude of the leaders of this world, of the children of Yafet today. Is not this great Babylon that I have built? So you might say, well, you killed the Indians and took this land. That's because we are greater and stronger than the Indians. Somebody say, well, you went down to Australia and killed the Aborigines. That's because this is the great system that we built, and we are stronger than the Aborigines. We are smarter than you. You cannot survive without us. You need us to tell you how to be civilized. Same attitude. See, brethren, you want to know what's going to happen in the future? Look at the past. I know they got this saying, those that don't learn the lessons of the past are doomed to repeat it, the lessons of history. Well, guess what? Man didn't learn. He's not going to learn. He's not going to. So everything you see in history is going to repeat. Here's a prime example right here. Nebuchadnezzar stood up and said, is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? 12 months later, verse 31. While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee, and they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. And at the end of the days, that is 7 years went by. He was like that for 7 years. He lost his mind, and he was like that for 7 years. At the end of the day, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes unto heaven, and my understanding returned unto me. And I blessed the Most High. That's the object. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he doth according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand or say unto him, what doest thou? At the same time, my reason returned unto me, for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and the brightness returned unto me, and my counselors and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added unto me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth and his ways judgment, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase. Those that walk in pride. You see, brethren, what Satan has is pride. And what he instills in his children is the spirit of stubbornness and pride. And those that are ruling in this Babylonian kingdom, in this age in which we live, this system, this worldwide economic, political, and religious system in which we live, they're not turning that over. They're not giving that up. They're not ever going to say we're wrong and we need to make things right. That's not going to happen. That is why what happened to Nebuchadnezzar is that he got converted. You are not going to see some of these sons of Yefet that rule now, the presidents, the prime minister. You're not going to see these brothers get converted. They're going to fight to the end. That's why we read in Ezekiel chapter 39, Gog and Magog coming with their weapons, thinking that they're going to fight the Most High and his chosen, and it's not going to help them. Because pride and stubbornness and arrogance, believe me, are powerful agents for the enemy. And they bring you far from the Most High, though you don't even know it. Here I was thinking I was being a faithful Christian. And I was so filled with pride and arrogance. I was so filled with that I didn't even realize how far I had floated away until he swept it all away. When he swept it all away and I was on the balls of my behind, then I realized what I had become and what was necessary for me to come back. Brothers and sisters, may the Most High cause you to humble yourself, lest he have to humble you out of love for you. See, remember we read in the Hebrews, whom he loveth, he chasteneth. If he just let you go in your pride and arrogance and don't do nothing to you, he don't care about you. I know people think God loves everybody. That's a lie. No, sir. No, sir. There's some of that he decides are bastards. You know what a bastard is? A bastard is not just how you're born. Like they say, if you're born out of wedlock, you're a bastard. That's Christianity. A bastard means you have no guidance. You have no father to guide you. You have no learning. You've never been chastened. Nobody's ever put the whip to your behind to correct you. And you've been raised like an animal. That's a bastard. And so the Most High said, let's go back. Let's finish with Hebrews chapter 12 from verse 6. For whom Yahweh loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, Yah dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, that means you've never been punished, nobody's ever corrected you, nobody's ever tried to place you in the right path. That happens to rich and poor. When you spoil a child, you're making that child a bastard because they can't receive correction and you never corrected them. And it just gets worse as they get old. Worst thing you can do in the world is spoil a child. And what happens? A lot of the sons of Yefet, their children are spoiled. Their children are spoiled. But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then ye are bastards and not sons. For furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh, which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? That's the thing right there, brethren. That's the thing right there. So Nebuchadnezzar had to be humble because the Most High loved him. That was showing his love to Nebuchadnezzar, giving him the warning dream, then having Daniel come back and give him the interpretation of the dream and giving him counsel, and then going through the 7 years of losing his mind to come back into sanity and sanity to understand who the Most High was and that he ruled. That's because he loved Nebuchadnezzar. If he loves you, he's going to put you through that. If he don't, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem. May the Most High Yah, cause us to humble ourselves before him so that he does not have to humble us. But if he does have to humble us, let us remember he only does it because he loves us. Shalom.